Hey folks, JD here, and today we're going to be looking at the comparison between the Aviax H20 and the Aviax F2C. So, it's been about 6 months since I've flown this. You remember the last time that we tested out if it was waterproof a little bit. The grass here had been absolutely drenched with a downfall of rain for the past few days. It got wet everywhere, took it home, and I didn't dry it off. Unlike a lot of the other quadcopters which aren't waterproof, I would properly dry them, make sure that they are working. This one I just left. So 6 months later, or roughly, I've decided to come back, and as I've got the other Aviax, we're going to be doing a comparison to see how this one flies versus the other one, whether or not the upgrade is worth it or not. So let's take her up and let's have a little look. So as you'll notice, I've already bound to the quadcopter. I've just gone through a pre-flight check and made sure that all the propellers are on properly and that everything's working. Obviously you can see the quadcopter is responding, all the lights are solid, so then we should be good to take her up. So we're going to fly her around a bit. I haven't attached the camera onto this, as you'll see. The camera is still on the F2C, just because I want it to be a test where this one is the same as the last test, if that makes any sense. No camera, just a base model, just to see how it flies, versus the F2C with the camera and a couple of other accessories as well. So then, let's take her up. So, first impressions after all this time, she is responding lovely. Look at that. There's a little bit of breeze here today, registering about less than 2 miles an hour. As you'll see from the trees in front, it's nothing really to be overly concerned about, but it's just enough just to ensure that this quadcopter is working the way that it should as well. So there we go. So first impressions after 6 months, because it has really been that long, is she flies very, very well. She is a very accurate quadcopter. She's not the quickest, as you can see, but she is very accurate. And I seem to have one motor seems to be sticking slightly on the front. That's strange. I went through and took off all the propellers, checked all the cogs, and everything seemed to be okay. But she does seem to be lacking the power one side more than the other. Or maybe I'm just remembering this quadcopter incorrectly. So yeah, so I think if you wanted a waterproof quadcopter, it's either going to be a toss-up between the two that I've reviewed, which would be this one and the JJRC H21. And to be honest with you, I think I would choose the Aviax by GP Toys. Quite simply because it seems it's a lot more of a sturdy machine. The H31 is good. JJRC are known for creating good quadcopters, but it just seems a bit too flimsy and a bit too light. I know a couple of people on the channel have said that they prefer light quadcopters, so thanks very much for the communications. I really do appreciate that. But for me, it just seems a little bit too light, a little bit too flimsy. I prefer something a little bit like this, a little bit sturdier. So, let's bring her down a bit, and let's land her, and let's have a little look. And let's look at these engines, just to see if, these propellers rather, to see if my suspicions are correct. So yeah, I 6 months later, we come back, we fly this, and I'm very happy. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, it seems to be this one. Not sticking as such, just seems to be a little bit... Well, there's nothing in the gears anyway. That's a great thing about these push pins. You can just push them, take everything out, have a little look. Oh, the gears are working correctly. Okay, that's fine. I won't worry overly about that then. That seems to be alright. It doesn't seem to be pulling one way more than the other, or I'd be a little bit concerned. Let's just attach this pin again. It's very cold here today, folks. We've had the first load of frost this year so far. It came in last night, and I'm hoping to get some nice shots on the camera on the F2C. But there we go. So, to be honest, this quadcopter, I'm still 6 months on. I'm still really liking it. It's not the quickest, as you'll see. It doesn't bank the quickest, so you can't do any nice turns or anything like that. But if you just wanted a quadcopter just for flying, or even if you wanted the model with the camera, then I think, to be honest with you, you're onto a winner. It's very stable. The battery lasts a good 8 minutes or so. A couple of downsides, and I think it's just a couple of things that I'm used to. One of them is that, as you would have seen just then, pull the cable out, lights turn off, quadcopter's off. There is no on and off switch. Now that either is, you either like it or you don't. I personally don't like it. I would much prefer there to be a little switch, because I plug the battery in, my normal pre-flight checks, I plug the battery in, check all propellers, make sure the screws are in, make sure these little push pins are in as well, make sure there's nothing in the vents in the side, and then turn on, bind, and off we go. Whereas this one, I have to rethink about what I've got to do, plug in, and then go through everything else. So yeah, I mean, if you're after a waterproof quadcopter, if you're after something which is more for the enjoyment of flying than the speed, then I would say, yeah, the H2O Aviax, go for it. So let's jump in now and have a little look at the F2C and do a side-by-side and see how that one responds. Okay, so here we go with the F2C. We saw this the other day when I took her out and flew her. She seems, well, really good, to be honest with you. There were a couple of key features that I went through that I really wanted to just go over again. The auto return didn't work according to plan, but to be honest with you, I often find that having a bit more space than this is advisable. I mean, I've got a football pitch and a bit, really, and yeah, I didn't have enough room to push it, and she flew backwards and hit this tree. So as you'll notice, the plastic antenna there has been smashed, but the rest of it is in full working order. Seems to be just fine. So that being said, let's take her up and let's see how she compares directly to the H2O. So this one, from the start, is a little bit harder to control. She always seems as if she's fighting back, does this one. She seems, when she's up and she's flying around, she's a lot quicker, as you'll see. She does perform manoeuvres a lot better as well. But I do feel as if she is the overly caffeinated H2O's brother. She doesn't, or sister rather, she doesn't seem 100% stable. I am often concerned for the fact that when you turn, I don't know if you saw that then, let's go back around. If I turn her again, see she wobbles beforehand. Now I've got a little bit of trim on this, but even without any trim, she does exactly the same. So it's a bit of a concern, but she's still a mighty fine copter to fly. Let's bring her down a bit. Okay, let's bring her in for a little landing. Okay, now let's start up the video, and let's see how well she's going to perform. Obviously, I'm gonna just taking the flight into consideration here, more so than the overall ability of the camera in this comparison, because, well, the H2O doesn't have a camera, so it's not exactly a very fair comparison. But as a flying wise, I mean, she's quite twitchy, like as if she is completely overly caffeinated, but she's still very fun to fly. Bring her back to me a little bit. I mean, she's got the ability to hover quite well. She hasn't got a barometer built in, there's no altitude hold, but as you can see, she does hover quite nicely. I mean, she does increase her altitude slightly, but all in all, she does seem to enjoy it. The only thing she doesn't seem to enjoy is turning. Okay, so let's do a... Yeah, she does seem to... She's got one heck of a wobble as she turns. And I noticed this the other day as well, when if you gently turn her, she does seem okay, like that. But if you just do some quite harsh manoeuvres, then she doesn't seem to take control very easily. Oh, I think the battery's on its way out. That was a descent that... Oh, there we go, and that's the battery. Let's turn off the video. Yeah, that descent was not powered, it was not controlled by myself at all. And then obviously she just fell from the sky. So, there we go. I mean, both of the quadcopters together, they are, if you look at the Aviax H20, it is a brilliant quadcopter. Very stable, flies very true. The F2C, as I've said a couple of times, does seem to be like the drugged up brother or sister. Very tweaked, very crazy, quite a lot of fun, obviously with a built-in camera. Now this camera can come off and can fit onto the H20, it has got the correct connections for it, should you choose to do so. Personally, that camera is not waterproof, the quadcopter is. A couple of other comparisons as well. Now, these controllers, the one in my right hand is for the H20, the one in my left hand is for the F2C. So personally, I know a lot of quadcopter fanatics prefer the one in my right. Myself, I have to prefer this controller. It is Xbox X-esque. It has a great feeling like a games console controller. You can rest your hands on it very easily. It is, well, it's very easy and very stable to control the quadcopter through this method. The buttons are nicely laid out, and I have found that with a lot of others, if the buttons are quite close together, even though there is a bit of a distance here, then my finger pushes 2 or 3 buttons at a time. With this one, because the circle pads are indented slightly, it doesn't seem to do that. I can pretty much hit every single button individually, every single time, even without looking at it. So yeah, I think I prefer this game console-esque controller, to be honest with you. This one is a lot like any of your other quadcopter ones. It feels great in your hand, but it is overly sized. I mean, the H20 does not have FPV, so you don't need this. If it had an FPV module clipped into the top for your phone, then I'd quite understand it. But there's just absolutely no need. I would have much rathered them come up with this controller for the whole range. It would have been a lot. It would have seemed a lot more logical. That being said, the telemetry screen down here does show you how much power you're putting in through each of the rudders. I thought I could have shown you, or maybe if I can drown out that noise. In through each of the rudders, it does show you the quadcopter, it does show you the channel that you're operating on as you move the throttles, and it does show you the signal distance between this and the quadcopter. To be honest, I've flown this quadcopter about 4 times, 5 times. I've never once looked at that. Other than when you bind it, have a little look, hold the quadcopter down, just see that all positions are working, and then off we go. And yeah, since then I haven't looked at it. So it's probably, in my eyes, not needed. But that being said, again, you know, it is just a very sort of pedantic downside more than anything. So there you have it, folks. So that has been the F2C and the H20 comparison. Yeah, to be honest, I think they're both great quadcopters. They both individually serve 2 completely different purposes. Waterproof, not waterproof. Camera, no camera. If you want to take photos, F2C. If you want to fly it in the rain, which I would not recommend, but if you are of that inclination, then the H2O. But either way, folks, they're both fantastic quadcopters. They're both roughly around the same price range. I'll put a link to each of them to an Amazon page in the description. And there we have it. So I hope you've enjoyed watching and listening. Thank you once again. I've been JD. You've been fantastic. We're now on Patreon, so please check us out on there. Also, don't forget to check out our blogger post for written content comparing all the quadcopters that we are testing. And obviously, don't forget to check out the website quadcopter.center for any up-to-date information as well as to what I'm doing, where I'm flying, etc. So until next time, my friends, happy flying.